Hi, my name's Romany. I'm an artist and illustrator from the UK and I've been asked to come and talk to you about art journaling. The first question everybody will want to know, I'm sure, is what is art journaling? And that is both the easiest question in the world to answer and the most difficult. Art journaling is art that you put in a journal, or journals that have art in them, and that is the long and the short of it. Once you come down to trying to define, even ignoring what everybody else does, and just try to define for yourself what is art and what is journaling and what is a journal, and therefore what is an art journal, you start getting embroiled in all these difficulties. A lot of people, when confronted with the word art, their initial reaction is, oh, but I can't draw. You confront people with the word journal and they say, oh, but I can't write. And all of these difficulties crop up simply from trying too tightly to define what it is you're going to make. My advice to either beginners just starting out, or to those who perhaps have been art journaling for a while but it's become a bit staid and the same all the time and you're looking for new things to try, is to step back and say to yourself, right, what do I consider to be arty? Not just fine art in the sense of, oh yes, I drew this and it's a beautiful picture and it looks exactly like my mother, but what else can you do? One of the things that you can do in your journals is to simply abandon all the accoutrements of art and go with something simple. Grab a pencil or a pen, or maybe just your watercolours, and do something easy. Do something that is just normal and everyday. Draw your coffee cup. Everybody can draw a cup. It doesn't have to be a good cup. It doesn't have to look exactly like your cup. Just draw a cup. You can take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 3 hours, however long you want to take, draw a cup. And there you have the beginning of an art journal page. Add a bit of journaling, job done. One of the things that journalers are coming up against at the moment, both new art journalers and journalers who've been doing it for a while, is the concept of mixed media. Now, mixed media is a big thing. Virtually every video or class or anything that you take to do with art journaling is going to talk about mixed media in some way or other. I have a bit of an issue with that. Those of you who are familiar with my teaching will know I do not like the idea that art journaling is just about mixed media. Now, that's an individual preference, of course. If you like your journaling to be about mixed media, or you love mixed media, then by all means go off and do what you want to do with anything you want to do it with. However, I do feel that there is a lot of emphasis on mixed media, and it gives the impression that that's all that art journaling is about, and it's not. It really isn't. So those of you who are sitting there saying, oh yeah, but I don't like doing mucky stuff, that's okay. You don't have to be mucky in your art journals. My art journals aren't mucky. I very rarely do anything particularly messy or dirty because I don't like getting my hands dirty. I like to do clean stuff with watercolours and pens and inks and alcohol markers and things like that. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that you automatically put down 6 layers of paint and make a background. And I think that can be very off-putting for new art journalists and even art journalists who've been doing it for a little while who perhaps want to branch out. Every video, every class you do, they start off with there are no rules to art journaling, there's no particular way to art journal, you can do anything you like, and then they all do exactly the same thing. Everything's about make a background, add stuff to it, add collage, write on it, job done. And there are many, many, many other ways to make an art journal page. One of the things that some of my students have been experimenting with recently is starting with a focal point instead of a background. We had a bit of a revelation in one of my classes where one of my students realised that the reason she started with a background was because that's what everybody did. Very often with these videos you will see people saying, oh well, we're all afraid of a blank page, so let's put some colour down to start with, and then it becomes layer upon layer upon layer of paint and stenciling and blah blah blah, which is okay, you know, if that's what you want to do, that's fine, but rewind it a little bit to that very first phrase. We're all afraid of a blank page. Are you? Are you really? Now if you are, fair enough, no problem. Go and find a few different ways that you can put down something on the page so it's not blank anymore. That's great. But there's an awful lot of people who are not afraid of a blank page. So what do you do then? If you feel more comfortable working with white space than a coloured background, then you should be starting with your focal point and working backwards. I very often will start with the drawing that I want to put on the page, or the writing, or the quote even, and I won't do a background until right at the very end when I think, oh well, I could do with a little pop of colour up in this corner, and then I will add a little pop of green or a little pop of pink or something, just to make the words or the pictures or the photographs or whatever it is I've put on the page stand out a little bit more. And if you're getting to the point where all your art journals are backgrounds and then you go, right, I've done the background, now what do I do? Then perhaps you need to look at it in a slightly different way. Everything does not have to be about backgrounds, and if you are stuck and you're looking at all this amazing mixed media layer backgrounds and thinking, I don't want to do that, you don't have to do it. And it's very important that people say that to you. Very often, these kind of examples, they will say, you don't have to do this, and then they will show you 15 ways of doing it. And no alternatives. And if you're not given any alternatives, what are you going to do? So this is really to encourage those of you who perhaps are not painty mixed media types and prefer smaller things, little crafting things like, you know, perhaps you're a card maker or a scrapbooker or of course a stamper. Whatever you do, perhaps you like to do little sketches, but you know that you call them just doodles because they're not really fine art pieces or anything like that. Or you perhaps just like to do Zentangles. An awful lot of people like to do Zentangles. If that's what you want to do in your art journal, you are free to do that. And there are videos out there that show you how to do that. Now sometimes you have to specifically go and look for a video on Zentangling or a video on scrapbooking in your art journal. You have to be a bit clever about how you search for these terms. You can't just put art journaling in anymore and you get a wide range of stuff, because art journaling has become all about mixed media. So be a little bit canny about how you search for terms online or how you look at things in magazines. If you look at things in magazines and you think, hey, I like that scrapbook page, but I don't do scrapbooking, so if I take away that and put that in and perhaps add this in the corner, I can turn that into an art journal page. All you card makers, oh, you would have so much fun with art journals, because all those things that you can't do as a card maker, all those stamps you can't use because of the angel policy, all those bits of collage and things that you've got that you really want to use but you can't because of the copyright issues, You can use them in your art journal. You can play as much as you like, as long as you're not submitting your art journals for publication to anywhere or anything like that. You have no copyright issues. So all of those things that you think, oh, I'd really like to do that, oh, but I can't use that stamp because, oh, it hasn't got the right angel policy. It doesn't matter. You can do it in your art journal. You can do it just for yourself. And you can say, okay, I'm going to use this ink with this type of paint and these type of markers, and I'm going to see what happens. And if it ruins and your ink bleeds and your markers don't work with that particular type of watercolour, well, it doesn't matter, because you've learned something from that. Make notes on the page about what went wrong and what you could have done instead. And then when you come to do your actual card making and your real craft, you've got all this information and all this knowledge of what works and what doesn't. And you've already got out of your system all the things that you'd like to do that you can't do on an ordinary card that's for sale. So you're left then with the kind of creative ideas that you can use for your sellable cards, and in your journal you can just play to your heart's content. The same with scrapbookers. Scrapbooking is very much about the aesthetic and making it look right, and centering your mats and getting everything in the right place and the balance of the page, and there's a lot of intricacy involved in proper scrapbooking. But sometimes all you want to do is stick a photo down and write about it. I mean, I love scrapbooking, and I certainly love digital scrapbooking, but sometimes it's too much. I don't want to get out packs of paper and layers and layers and layers of mats and ribbons and goodness knows what else. I want to just stick a photo down because it means something to me and write about it. And all of those little things that you do in stuff like your project life and your mini albums and anything like that, as long as it's not too 3D and it fits into a book, you can do that in your art journal. And you can experiment with things. If you want to play with the latest craze, as far as I can tell, is adding acrylic paint to your scrapbook pages. If you want to play with that kind of thing and play with inks on your photos and stuff like that, an art journal is the place to do it. And nobody can tell you that what you're doing isn't art journaling, because art journaling is just about anything you want. Art journaling is your definition, and if you want to call it art in your journal, then it doesn't matter what form it takes. If you can't draw, it doesn't matter. You all have stamps. I know you do. I'm not even a stamper, and I have stamps. I have stamps coming out of my ears. I don't even know where some of them came from. And I'm sure you're the same. And if you're a rubber stamper, then you definitely have stamps that you've perhaps not even used in years. Drag them out and use them in your art journal. Create your own washi tape using strips of tissue paper and stamping onto it and then colouring it. Use it as borders. Use it as a main design. One of the things that I like to do with stamps, if I'm feeling particularly lazy, even though I can draw, if I really like the design of a stamp, and I don't really want to just stamp it on in its raw form, but I'd perhaps like to do something different with it, is to stamp it on to the page with very light colours, and then draw over it. In the giveaway stamps for this month, we have a classic example of this. The little doggy. Isn't he cute? He's just the cutest thing ever. He's so adorable. He's just a plain little dog. But, okay, he's a Dachshund. I love Dachshunds. They're so cute, the little stubby legs. But there's no real reason why you couldn't stamp him in yellow, redraw over him, make his legs a bit longer, make his tail a bit fluffier, and you've got a retriever or a collie. Give him a little jacket, one of those trendy little doggy sweaters or something. Zentangle it, cover it in doodles, turn him into a patchwork doggy. There are all sorts of things you could do with this, even down to basic card making techniques, like printing him onto paper and cutting him out as a die cut. So, you know, don't be afraid in any way to use the techniques and supplies and just about anything that you already have to do art journaling. If you want to have a go at art journaling, have a go at art journaling. It doesn't matter if you can't draw. I guarantee you, if you draw every day for a year, you will get better. So don't think about, oh, well, I can't draw now. Think about, well, if I draw every day for a year, I'll be able to draw better next year. You know, keep it short and simple and sweet and outliney. Draw cartoons. Redraw stamps. Why not? It's your art journal. It's not governed by any kind of angel policy if it's for you. So try recreating the stamp, but drawing it yourself. If you need a reference for where you got your stamp from, just write it in the margin of which stamp it was or which company it's by. And you can always go back to it then and re-find it and redo it. Perhaps set yourself a challenge to draw a stamp this year and then come back to it next year and draw it again and see how much you've improved. There are so many things you can do in an art journal. It's all about experimentation. It's all about having a go at various different things, trying new things. It doesn't matter if you're not very good at rubber stamping. Play in your art journal, you will get better. Because it's all practice. And the more you practice, the better you'll get. And we all know that the more fun practice is, the more we want to do it. So make your practice fun. Don't let anybody tell you what you can or can't do in your art journal, and start wherever you are. Don't try to follow what everyone else is doing. They've been art journaling for a while. You know, these people who've been art journaling for 4 or 5 years or 10 years or however long, you know, you can learn things from them, but at the moment you maybe don't have the skill set. So don't try and emulate them. Do what you want to do in your art journal and try to keep it fun and light and experimental. And I hope very much that some of you, at least, will start to enjoy this hobby as much as I do. Happy art journaling.